If that fits, we'll 5:19 on September 1st, 2021, and this is a meeting of the Androscoggin County Commissioners. We'll call the meeting to order and let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, all commissioners are present except for District 1 that is temporarily unrepresented right now. We'll start the public hearing for the budget, and we'll begin with Administrator giving us an overview of the budget.
Very quickly, the budget expenditures are up by the department 3.4%, by the jail 0.66%, so it's about a 2% increase in the expenditures, which is very good. The bad news is the revenues are down. Last year we used way more revenues than we should have to keep the tax rate down because we didn't know what was going to happen this current year we're in. So we used $380,000 from fund balance, $150,000 from the, in 2022 I'm looking at $150,000 because we simply cannot keep the rate going of using as much as we did. Reserves, last year we used $100,000 in departments. This year I'm looking at nothing because we're depleting that. The jail, last year we had $550,000. This year I'm looking at $100,000. And so the revenues are down, but again, the expenditure part of the budget is coming in at about 2%.
Thank you. This time we'd be happy to hear any public comments. When you have a comment, if you would come up and use the microphone, and if you would state your name and the town that you're from. Okay, do we have anyone online that would like to comment, or do we have that capability right now? Okay, we will move on. And we're moving on to number 5 to finalize the preliminary budget. I think the first order of business in finalizing the preliminary budget would be to take the one issue that was tabled last week, and I believe that's 1077. Is that right, Mr. Post? I think it's I'm pretty sure it's 1077.
Madam Chair, it's 1077.3220.
And take that off the table, that's the discussion around the death benefits. I guess I'll open the discussion by saying that I appreciate very much Commissioner Larry bringing this important issue up. I think it's really worthy of our discussion and worthy of our considering. I think it's a important issue. I think as I listened to the discussion, the only thing that I had a little concern with was I sort of am a person that likes formula, and finding a formula that is equitable and sustainable. And so I started just looking back, I believe, and Sheriff can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's been 15 years since Officer Rancourt died. 8 of those years I've been involved in the negotiation, and then there was a 3 or 4 year backlog on the contract. So I think it takes it up almost to 12 years that I've been involved in the cost of living adjustments that we've made to his department. And so I'd like to put it out there for a discussion. that we take the benefit and we roll it into and have it considered as part of the cost of living increase that is given to those departments across every year. And if we did that, and this is very rough math, but I pretty much remember have notes on what the cost of living increase has been for the last 12 years, and was able to find some articles in the Sun Journal for the 3 years that I don't have notes on. And if we took that back and you took every year, and let's say the cost of living adjustment was 1.5, and if that was on year 10, add that 1.5 retroactive back, it came very close to the 25,000 that you proposed. And so in order to have something that sort of makes sense to me, I don't make motions as the chair, as just a matter of personal policy, but I'd like to know if the board would consider making a motion that every year in preparation of the budget, any law enforcement death benefit will be subject to the same cost of living adjustments as all other law enforcement, and that Commissioner Larry's proposal of $25,000 would represent a retro payment for the cost of living adjustments in the past. And that if you take the cost of living adjustments from the past, that would bring his base payment to $20,633 going forward. And then going forward, we would always just consider that as part of adjustments made by the department. With that, I'll put out for discussion from the people who discuss it. Other commissioners.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So the numbers you calculated, you said they came close to the 25,000, but then I heard you say 20,000?
Well, 20,000 would be the base. Right now, I think the base is 17.
942.
Yes, thank you. And if you took, if that benefit was where it would be with all of the increments through the years, we would be at 20,000. So that would now be the new base going forward. And the 25,000 that Commissioner Larry proposed would represent a retroactive payment if we would have given him those cost of living increments along the way for the last 15 years.
So your proposed motion would set the base at 20,000 and moving forward, and then effectively give the widow 25,000.
Right. I believe his number is very right in the ballpark of what those retroactive payments would be.
I so moved.
I
second
I can put that with the notes then. All right, all those in favor of, yes.
Just as for discussion, is normally warranted but after the motion, but not before, but I appreciate the commission considering this. My only question would be, we seem to be focusing on COLA. We added, I think, $1 an hour pay raise during, this is open session union negotiations, and also 3% pay raises, many different pay raises, 1.5% in the past. So I just would like to make sure that that's included in that, just as if any person had started today at 50% of that salary, whatever they would have received at this date.
Yeah, I wouldn't have that, somebody else would have to calculate. I don't know what the, I mean, there are no pay raises included in this. There are no steps included in this. This is strictly cost of living. And I actually took that from your comment about due to inflation. And when you said that, that really rang true with me, that due to inflation, this number ought to be adjusted and should every year be adjusted. As with this year, we have a 3% cost of living adjustment. It should be adjusted with the cost of living. As far as pay raise, you know, I don't know. Somebody else would have to calculate that. I have no idea what steps and pay raises, how in the world you would calculate. I don't even know what you would do with that, Sheriff.
All I can say is if you remember back to the time where we had the dollar across the board, there was 3 or 4 years where there was absolutely no increases because of the bickering between the union and the county commissioners over things not even related to salary. So they lost those years in the budget. At that point, our wage scale was so out of whack that giving the dollar a year was the only thing we could do to get you even close to market. So it's a rare occurrence. I hope it never repeats itself again. It happened, but what would have happened if things would have been handled appropriately before, there was a county administrator and a charter to keep things in line with how you go. And as far as setting the money aside, so you'd have the money to cover, not just say, oops, sorry, we didn't encumber the money, therefore you're out 2007, you're out 2008, you're out 2009. So it happened. I don't know how you can account for it. I'm sure David's widow will appreciate any attention to this, and I think you guys are showing a great step forward with your motion and how you plan to address it in the future. I think that's acceptable because it's more than what was ever done in the past. I don't think I'd weigh too much down on those things that were needed to be done to get us up to a livable wage to employ people. That's just my opinion.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, so just to clarify, we would be allocating $25,000 for this current one, or did I mishear the motion? I apologize, I just want to clarify.
No, the 25,000,
Yes.
what we would be doing is classifying that or characterizing it as the retro payment
Okay.
for if we would have from the very beginning been given, if the benefit would have been in that cost of living cycle that we give the others in that department,
Okay.
that would represent retroactive payment for
And then
that.
going forward, it would most likely be 20 something.
Well, the base would be 20, and then whatever the cost of living is
Okay.
built into the
Thank you.
budget.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to make sure we're doing 25,000 this time, so.
Well, yeah, and the 25,000, it was, when I started actually adding it, I can't remember the exact amount, but it was right in that ballpark, so I feel like that's a really good amount. And it gave me a formula to go with, which I like a reason and a formula, so. Anyone else like to weigh in? Okay, so we have, I guess first we have to vote on accepting the amendment to the motion. And we have a motion and a second. All of those in favor of accepting the amendment to the motion? Okay, opposed? And are we ready to move to Commissioner Knight's motion as amended?
As amended.
Okay, all those in favor? I'm sorry, I wasn't at the last meeting and I don't have it in my notes. Was there a motion and a second at the last meeting before it was tabled? I know there was a motion. Okay, let's for the record, just make
There
sure.
was.
I seconded the motion.
The Sheriff's Department line, death benefit to 25,000, Larry Ames, no vote.
Okay, great, so we're covering all of our bases. So, all those in favor of accepting this motion as amended? Opposed? And, Mr. Post, I have the motion in writing.
Okay.
Okay, were there any other outlying issues with the budget? I don't remember any other, that's the only one I made note of. Okay, so at this
Madam
point,
Chair.
I guess it's up to the commissioners how,
Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion to reduce the Sheriff's Department's line 1075 3120 by $13,000. Thank you.
okay, and was this already a motion in a previous meeting?
That was approved the last meeting. Adding the 13,000 was voted on at last meeting. And he's trying to take away the 13,000 that was approved at the act.
Madam Chair, it is in order to make that motion unless we are bound by all considerations before. We have an opportunity for public hearing. If no public does speak, that's certainly their rights, but We may have heard from the public in between this past budget meeting, and now we are not bound by those considerations before, as has been requested for us to be done, that is not accurate. So I would just state that this is in order. We are the kind of commission, I can't speak for all of us, but I can speak, as a commissioner, and we have the right to adjust this budget before we approve it.
Let me, is
You can
there
make
any
your motion.
objection to just go ahead and revisiting this? Okay, good. So go ahead and would you restate what it is that you would like to?
Sure, thank you. Just to clarify, the objections aren't even relevant for the bylaws on that, but.
Would you
the-
restate your motion, please?
Okay, Madam Chair. A motion to reduce by $13,000 Sheriff's Department line 1075 3120 salaries and wages as approved in the previous budget meeting. Since it was added up to this was added, so I'm voting to reduce that amount that's in the current budget that we have in front of us that was received today.
Okay, second to that motion? Okay, seeing no second, I'd like to move on to a discussion of how you would like to handle the budget. We could do a number of things since this year. We did handle it a little different where we took votes along the way. We could, go back and revisit an area that maybe you've had a second thoughts on, or we could vote on it in its totality where the changes have been made, where you wanted changes. It's up to the commissioners. I'm willing to go forward however you'd like to.
I'd like to see us vote on the budget. That's ready to go.
Okay, vote on the budget. Okay, and that's a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to
I would
vote on this
just a
one.
second.
There hasn't been a motion made, Madam Chair, from the order, so I
no,
make a
you're-
motion.
is
There
it-
was not a motion.
I still have the
Where
floor.
There was not. You yielded it back to Chairwoman Christner, sir.
Greg,
I make a
Go for it.
motion that we actually go through the budget. This is the budget, this is the taxpayer's budget, and it's very interesting every time.
Madam Chair, the gentleman is debating the issue and has not made a motion.
It
Do you
is,
have
Excuse me, the
a-
gentleman has
just-
not made a motion, he's
just state
debating
your
the
motion.
issue.
Just state your motion, please.
and it is interesting that Chairwoman
No.
Christner allows you to say whatever
Could
you
you state
wish.
your motion, please?
Then allow me to answer my questions too,
Then you
Madam
make the
Chair.
challenge, sir. You make the
You are
challenge.
not the chair, sir.
All right,
You're not the chair. Make a challenge instead of sitting there like a...
I want this debate to
In order,
stop.
Madam Chair.
I want this debate to stop now. You would ask to make a motion.
And
And
you
we're
tried to
asking-
give it back to him, and it wasn't even a
I'm
motion.
giving you the floor. You may make your motion.
Then don't
No,
allow
I'm giving
him
you
to
the
speak
floor.
to his motion without it. Madam
Right,
Chair, I
is
make a
anyone
motion
else like
that
I
the
make a motion.
commission votes
I move
on
that we accept the
the
budget as...
budget piecemeal.
Okay,
I'll second that.
Commissioner Michaels made a motion that we accept the budget.
I second it.
Madam Chair, this
Wait.
is not even considering the budget. What's the point of a public hearing if the public can't speak and then the commission actually decides?
Why was the public not able to speak?
If the public, well, I did not say that, what my point, or what I mean is the public, please, the public, if the public speaks and wishes us to change a vote
Don't do
or
anything.
change expenditures, then we have the authority and right to change the budget now. We are not locked in by previous meetings, and there's a shell game that keeps getting played where we're committed to everything before, and we can't change anything before, but then we must all of a
We get on
sudden
topic.
not talk about it
Okay.
later.
We have a motion on the floor.
And debate is in order, Madam Chair.
We have not even had a second to it yet.
I'll
It
second
was
it.
seconded by Commissioner Ames.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Ames.
It was
Now
already
let's
seconded.
open it up for discussion. How you want to go forward. We have a motion and we have a second to vote on the budget in its totality and let the debate from the last few weeks stand. It's really up to the board how you want to go forward with this.
Madam Chair, I would request the commission to consider that the chairwoman needs to be crystal clear in the budget committee meetings all August long that we are bound by our decisions beforehand and that we may not consider it now. because there is a shell game that is played for the past 4+ years that I have served as a commissioner, where we are supposedly not allowed to vote and change anything beforehand. We've started voting this time around, but we are not allowed to change anything beforehand. It is no touch for commissioners. And then at the end, we're told we've already discussed this and we don't need to actually vote on it again.
If I understand correctly, we started with the overview of the budget, and we did ask for public comments. There was no public comments presented at that time. At this point, we're being asked to accept the budget that was presented to us and that we reviewed previously with discussions. I don't see any problem with doing it in that process. It will now go to the budget committee, and they will do their part concerning this. This is not the final budget that we're voting on. This is the budget that is going to the budget committee to be worked on by them. The public was invited to all the prior budget committee meetings also. They had an opportunity to present, be here. They were, those meetings were open to the public. I personally do not have a problem with voting in totality for the budget as presented.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Michael?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The motion before us is to vote on the budget in totality. If someone wants to debate the budget separately, they could vote against this. If they have the votes, then separate parts of the budget could be opened up and debated and changed today. But the motion before us is to pass the budget as is.
Madam Chair? If that is the case, how do we actually discuss those items before the vote? If we don't have that now, and also what is being said is we're giving to the budget committee. Once it comes back from the budget committee, there's also the attitude of no touch, except possibly raising amounts if we find out from our healthcare insurance costs, which come in November typically. There's a chronic issue of this is the commission's budget. We've been told and asked that we commit ourselves beforehand to the cost so that staff know exactly what it will be, so that we don't even really hold a vote at this meeting other than just rubber stamp, pass it along. And that is the problem. The administrator does not have the right to expect us to commit ourselves to what we vote on in the previous meetings when new information may be found, or new decisions may be made, or for that matter, the public reaches out to us and asks us to change the expenditures. So it's not accurate, and it's interesting because we received a request to increase by $13,000 the budget on stuff that the sheriff explained very clearly he had thought about and known about for quite a long time.
Okay, no, I don't.
So this
Way
is
off
a very good
topic again.
justification.
Motion
Yeah.
to call the vote,
Move to call.
call the question. excuse
Second.
me. Call the question.
Okay, and so what, call the question,
Second.
okay? Commissioner Kelly?
Second.
All right, and to call the question, we'll take a vote of 5 commissioners, I believe. Is there any disagreement with that? It takes a supermajority. Okay. All of those that would like to move on to the question, and let's be very clear, this is not voting in favor or against the actual question on the floor, whether you want to have further discussion and debate on the budget. This is only to call the question, to be clear. All those in favor of calling the question? Opposed?
Opposed.
All right. So let's go ahead and call the question. And I'm going to ask the person that made the motion to restate the motion, because we've sort of veered away from it a little bit.
The motion is to accept the budget as presented.
Okay.
Or as amended.
As amended.
Yeah.
And what I
Thank you.
have for the amendment is...
Thank you for that.
$4,208,315. Is there anybody that could, that is with the 25,000 Commissioner Larry proposed added to the 4183315? Is there anyone that can
You
concur
had
that?
7,058 too.
Pardon me?
Did you add 7,058?
I did not.
Because that was what the difference was.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
What do you
Commissioner
have
Walker.
for?
I didn't, I wrote the differences, I didn't.
Okay.
Sorry.
So you're saying there's an additional 7,000, what was that number again?
$7,058 regarding the cost of living adjustment. Slash back retro.
Correct. Understood.
So the new total is 4,190,373.
Did you get that number, Mr. Post, also? Would you say that number one more time, right in the mic? please?
4,190,373. Is that correct?
No, that's not the,
That's not correct. I'm taking total revenues, 4.1, no? What's the number I'm looking for?
okay, essentially you just need to add the 7,058 to the expenditures of 8,461,962.
That's not really so funny. So you're taking it from page 1?
Yes, expenditures.
Okay, does someone have, do
So
you want to state that number again?
all you need to do is add the $7,008 to the 8,461,962, and then the prisoners. So you're adding $7,008 to the total budget.
Madam Chair, 7,008 or 7,058, my numbers were 7,058.
Yes, 7,050.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yes,
so
that's
that's
42.
That's what I got to you.
I was going into the wrong line.
I was too. Okay. We have a motion and we have a second. All of those in favor of finalizing this preliminary budget to move on to the budget committee. And opposed?
I am opposed. I wish the minutes reflect, I think it's irresponsible for our commission to rush through a vote and to not consider issues line by line and to commit ourselves to previous things instead of actually doing the job that we're called to do to serve the taxpayer. Thank you.
Number 6, accept and approve the waiver of the reading of the minutes. I will, yes,
Can I ask a question about the capital improvement part of the budget
sure,
before you move on?
yes.
Alan Ward, representing Lisbon. My question may have already come up, I didn't actually hear any of it, maybe the budget tonight. I'm concerned, or asking, will the budget committee be getting any use associated with the ARPA funds? In that regard, I heard the plans for the $20 million that you guys discussed at the previous meeting, and I mentioned it at that point in time. There are things that are not in last year's budget and this year's budget. The fact that to be able to draw the distinction about funds not actually being in this budget, I vehemently disagree. In that regard, you can just point to EMA matching funds. That's a federal fund. The fact that we've heard repeatedly at the budget committee level that anything that we cut on that line, we're losing 50 cents on the dollar associated with that that needs to be addressed. You're getting $20 million and you're not bringing this before the budget committee?
The
Shame.
budget committee will have an outline of where we're spending that, the money and the proposed that hasn't been voted on yet. So far, they voted
Will
on
be
it.
part of the budget, the capital improvement plan?
It'll show up as part of what we're doing.
Thank you. It is a better answer, that's the Mr. Post. Because you think I'm going to actually defend that with Mr. Lights of some of our people? I'm not inheriting that mess. Anything that you can actually bring that to the budget committee to say that's coming from the commissioners is blessed is going to make it a much easier task to bring that through the budget committee.
And some of this is actually reducing the budget.
By all means, I get the intent, because anything that you can remove from operations to put it on the back end, that completely makes sense.
Yes.
And I just don't want to highlight, because I said, I don't want to highlight Andrew's position, but I agree with, associated with that, but the target will be the fact that there's justification after the fact, what happens in that position after the funds are used up. I don't want that to be played out at the budget committee.
Right. You will get that information out.
Perfect.
Review and approval of all bills, part-time deputy
Point
payroll.
of order, Madam Chair, we never finished with the reading of the minutes.
Oh, thank you, yes, you're right. Accept and approve the waiver of the reading of the minutes. That's August 11th, 18th, and 25th, our budget meetings and regular meetings.
Madam Chair, I move to accept and approve the waiver of the reading of the minutes from meeting dates, from budget meeting dates, August 11th, 18th, and 25th, and commissioner meeting held on August 18th. I believe that's correct.
Second?
I'll second it.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I wish the minutes to be amended to accurately reflect my statement made on August 25th, 2021. Under for the death benefit, line 10-10-3220, it should accurately reflect, I am opposed because I'm concerned that we'll have information show up, or even legal information show up, that will somehow say this is a bad idea, as is the case typically.
So I
No
wasn't here,
objection?
so I'm going to depend on you all to accept that.
No objection.
amendment.
I will amend my motion.
Madam Chair, another, on the August 18th meeting, I would point out on the first page, note, it's in italics, note 7 comments from the public was moved up in order for Mayor Levesque to attend the public school, Auburn School Department meeting. I would state, I really object to staff adding commentary to minutes. That is not their place. These are the commissioner's minutes. It is the job to accurately record what was stated, not to add in commentary that puts them in a position that is not appropriate for staff to be doing for a governing board. Thank you.
Are you changing the minutes of the meeting? I don't know.
I requested that be removed. It's inappropriate for it to be added. But once you're able to add commentary in one way or another, it's then starts to change the ability of the minutes to be accurately reflected. That should not be done. That's not the role of those that take minutes. It's to accurately record minutes, not add in commentaries. Because that can potentially, not saying to do this, but it can potentially shift the balance of the record one way or another. Thank you.
What's the board's pleasure on changing those minutes?
Administrator wants to comment.
Okay.
That was placed in there to clarify the comment that Commissioner Larry made about allowing people to move up on the agenda, and it was to clarify why he was being moved up. Commissioner Larry's comment could be taken wrongly.
Okay. The board's, what the
Madam Chair.
board's, we're at the, you've already stated your case, Mr. Post stated why. what's the board's pleasure in changing the board commissioners?
I realized that in his comments from the public was moved up in order for Mayor Levesque, but that's what we were told that day, the reason he was. We didn't ask for it to be noted, such as Commissioner Lair's position, but to say that it's inaccurate, I guess the fact that it was said out loud why we were moving him up on the agenda was because he had to attend another meeting. So I'm not sure why you think it's an opinion because it was stated out loud. I realize maybe he didn't put it down as when he was, I'd have to go back and listen to the tape, I guess, but I know we were told. This is not something that we were not, we didn't just find out that the mayor was suddenly speaking ahead of everybody else. We had an explanation given to us as to why we were being asked to change the agenda. So I think you're getting into.
Madam Chair, if I could answer that, it's that it is not written in the bylaws to add in information. It changes the note taker's responsibility from, it can potentially change the record, and it's not appropriate to start to say Commissioner Larry's, and it's interesting, this has happened before, we have interjections added to the minutes. That can change the narrative, it can change the history, because as you know, these are our official record of our meeting, other than the video. And if the videos disappear, this is all anybody sees. It's inappropriate to add commentary unless it's added by the board. It's not the role of the administrator or whoever to add in commentary, whether they think it's accurate or not. It's not their position.
Is
And
it
it's
the will of
dangerous
the
to
board
others.
to change those minutes? Yes.
Then I would like to make a motion that the motion read to amend the agenda in order for Mayor Levesque to attend the Auburn School Department meeting, moving up item 7. Would that be correct?
Was that the motion? I don't know. I would just, the motions do need to be recorded accurately, so.
I honestly don't know. 'Cause I don't-
And I'm not
Is
sure
it-
either. I'm
is
just
it the
saying it's
will-
not
I just-
appropriate.
That's, we've debated this. Is it the will of the board to change, to make those changes? It's your minutes.
I abstained, I wasn't here for that meeting.
Madam
Chair, just, it's not really an issue of the will of the board.
Yeah,
It shouldn't be done to begin with.
Okay.
So why do we
Is
need
it
to
the
take a
will of
vote
the-
to make it not happen? We should say never do
It
this
is the
again.
will of the board to change the 25th. Is it the will of the board to change the minutes from the 18th? Okay, so what we're voting on then is the amended minutes from the 25th and the minutes from August 11th and 18th. All those in favor of accepting?
To the 11th and 25th, I have to abstain for the
Okay,
18th.
we're accepting the minutes from August 11th and August 18th. We are accepting the minutes as amended on the 25th. Okay, all those in favor? And opposed?
Madam Chair, I'm opposed. Our request in this reflect is not the role of staff to add interjections into minutes to clarify commissioner statements for or against. It is wrong. It is not allowed. It should not be happening. Thank you.
Mr. Poirier, any report from MCCA?
Uh,
Oh, now I'm still jumping ahead of myself. The warrants, I'm sorry. And my notes are running into every category here. And the warrants, payroll manual warrants, 2131, 2208J. A motion, please.
Madam Chair, I move to approve payroll manual warrants 2131 and 2208J.
And a second.
Second.
Thank you.
Rosenberg.
Any discussion about the warrants? Okay, all those in favor? And opposed?
Opposed. Thank you.
A report from MCCA.
We did not meet.
Okay, thank you. Central Maine Workforce Board.
Nothing terribly current, but I am excited to announce that they are, taking up an item on their agenda to at least change 2 meetings or 3 meetings per year to the afternoon so that I can take part as well. I brought it to their attention several times and they're acting. So it's good.
Administrators report.
I really don't have one. I've been working on, obviously, budget, as you've seen, and you see so on. I'll have a more comprehensive report next week.
Comments from the public, other than the budget comments, or I guess you could still comment on the budget too. Okay, moving on to 10, new business dispatch proposal. Sheriff.
So you know how we've been meeting with LA Calm about consolidating dispatch in the county. A question came up that I wanted to answer. I feel I already have in the beginning and the inception of all the ground rules, so I reported back that it would require the commissioners, how they move forward. Apparently there was a discussion had with, it was said the city of Auburn, but I'll assume that the LA 911 board was involved. They wanted, for consideration, to form a board of governance to move forward. So I responded that I would bring that to the commissioners to decide if that is something they're interested in doing or having, as if we were to consolidate, that the communication center would operate under a board of governance.
This isn't a vote, though, that we're moving forward, still got 2 times to go through the floor.
Yeah, you can think about it and get back to me, and I'll tell them that tomorrow. Or you can say, I have no problem with forming a board of governance. If you have questions about what that would mean, I'd be happy to do the best I can to answer you. Or you could say, we're not interested at all. I'll tell you, Larry doesn't mind me speaking for him. In the beginning, we had meetings about a lot of things regarding structure of it, and I think we determined pretty early on that we weren't interested in bringing the proposal forward with a board of governance being how it would operate under. We made that clear. We explained to them how the county government worked, how currently it's under the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office supports the director to manage the center. Come budget time, because that's the most frequent example of the disciplinary issues. Director builds a budget, brings it to the sheriff, the director goes to the county administrator, which then ends up with county commissioners. Through the, it operates under the agreement and the labor agreement with the county commissioners. And we currently have a users group that meets quarterly, where we're able to address issues and decide how services will be delivered. So we felt adding a board of governance wasn't necessary, would add a layer, some bureaucracy, could empower, possibly the board of governance over maybe even the county commissioners. I said since the beginning, if all felt it was in the best interest to remove the communication center from the sheriff's office, I would get out of the way. But this is a little different in context. I was referring to the director report directly to the county administrator and then the county commissioners. I think it works well with the sheriff. I think it always has. But if everybody thought that would be the best interest, we worked through that. It was determined to leave it under the sheriff's office. But I believe if it operates under the governance board, that it would not only be in everybody's best interest to operate outside of the sheriff's office, I think it could diminish the power of the county commissioners to some degree. And in my opinion, seeing how these things operate, it would add a level of governance that's not necessarily in some of your product, but they wanted to bring it back here. That's what I'm doing. I didn't even want to give my opinion, but I kind of feel bad not. And it's okay to disagree. If the commission says we'd be interested in pursuing that, I have no problem with telling them that. I think it's a worthwhile endeavor for the county, for LA 911 system. I also see some benefits to the existing structure and redundancy. Pros and cons with everything. I felt that at this point it wasn't my decision. The decision was yours.
Madam Chair, I tend to want to keep it simple. And first thing I thought it was another layer of bureaucracy, which is hard to track, hard for the public to track. So I would prefer not to go into an additional level of governance.
I'll second that motion.
Well, it's just my preference, but you can second my preference.
And it might not affect this vote, they might be kicking the tires, that's appropriate to say. But it might be put an end to it all, but we've got a lot of hours invested in this, and we agreed on the inception that if we got to an impasse, we're on the file, we did our due diligence. I don't know if that, at this point, depending on how your motion goes, and I'm not concerned. I think what's in the best interest is to maintain how we operate now.
Eric, what are they expecting us?
Well, the example they gave me to use, because it was kind of unclear, so I said, you know, you look at how they operate now, and I was on the board when I was on the city council in Auburn. And they have a board where basically your director goes for policy decisions, operational decisions, things like that. And the board works with the director forming a budget and then brings it to the two separate councils. And that's problematic depending on who gets the budget first. Because once one approves it, the other is almost obligated. And I kind of feel like bringing in a governance board would be, it's something's going to be approved there, and it's going to come to the commissioners. And while I don't agree, well, something stated here tonight where I think you'd almost be obligated to honor the governance board's request. And it would be rather large because the suggestion used was 2 members from each group that uses it. So you're talking like 32-member board. And I think it's hard to coordinate getting 7 people in a room at the same time, a lot. So that could be a logistical nightmare. And it was said to me, well, it was mentioned Cumberland County, look at how they're doing. I'm sorry, I wasn't really interested in looking at Cumberland County, how they're doing it. Not that they're doing it wrong, but I'm not interested in governance. So if you're that interested in Cumberland's model, bring it to me and I'll present it to the commissioners. And I don't say that offensively, it's just maybe we're having a difference of opinion. So I kind of take it as a director will work with the Board of Governance and, have monthly meetings on how the center is moving, how the center is going to operate, the policy decisions, things like that. If you have a Board of Governance, I would imagine they're empowered for a lot of things. And I said in the request, I said, well, obviously that would remove the sheriff, which if everybody thinks that's in the best interest for a call center, I'm okay with that. But then when Larry and I talked, I think there'd be some question about how much authority would the commissioners actually feel overseeing it? And what is the need for a board of governance other than not comfortable with the unknown of what they're entering into, how county government operates, which Larry and I think we thought we got over that in the first 2 months of our meetings. That was a process in itself. So how it looks, I can't actually tell you because Cumberland was used as reference, but I don't know if Cumberland actually. Marty, does Cumberland have a board of governance? Just a simple yes or no. See, they have an advisory. And we have a users group that's advisory. When you're saying board of governance, I believe that implies they have some real authority.
Madam Chair. The idea of an advisory
We use advisory right now.
Okay, and Cumberland does, I mean, that could certainly be a plus, which wouldn't necessarily complicate things.
It was explained to them that we already have an advisory committee. And we would expand it with users, because our advisory committee is made up of the users. And actually, it helps us to decide how we're going to deliver the service to everybody consistently, so it cuts down on the errors. But they knew that, so when you say board of governance, and you're not really clear on it, and I guess maybe I could add, when I asked more, there didn't seem to be a really clear answer other than, well, like Cumberland does. But if Marty's saying it's advisory, that's what we have. We have an advisory group made up of our customers, because we're into that customer service kind of thing.
Right.
Thank you. Chair. You said you have an advisory group, or Wales, Sebastian, and Lisbon, town officers all part of this advisory group currently?
Lisbon's not.
Or Wales and Sebastian?
Yes.
They're actually invited, they're included,
I just said yes.
from how long ago?
From its inception.
Okay.
Other than COVID-related delays with things, they regularly communicate. The fire chief of Sebastian, I believe, isn't afraid to call. So we work with everybody because we want to be responsive, provide the service how they want it. We want to build consensus. That's part of the reason for having the users group. But the users group is advisory. There's a lot of participation with fire rescue. I believe law enforcement there isn't, but law enforcement there's a lot of regular communication. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, the law enforcement group, when you were meeting regularly, didn't necessarily show up all the time. But the fire and rescue,
So my understanding was it was just Auburn and Lewiston meeting for quite a while, up until I guess maybe a month or two ago. Right, a month ago.
we don't meet with theirs, we don't dispatch.
But we're looking at merging this all together.
So as part of the, you're talking two different things. Our user advisory group is who we're providing dispatch services. Our consolidation is the existing dispatch centers. So while we've been working with LA 911 or Lewiston and Auburn, we kept Lisbon up to speed on everything because they're the only ones that have a dispatch center. They don't have a PSAP, they have a dispatch center. So we've let them know because whatever we do could potentially benefit or affect them.
I'm not, personally, just as me, with my 5 towns, I still have 2 towns that I have not met with the Board of Selectmen for their input on the issue, so I really don't feel like I'm ready to move forward with anything in any direction until I've heard from all 5 towns. You understand that?
No, I will tell you the feedback I've gotten so far, even from Poland, is they understand what we're trying to do. Most can see it as beneficial. Some have a larger historical view of this, and they're more supportive even with the costs. And Larry can attest to that because he went to those meetings. Some, they take it or leave it. Their issue is they would like it funded differently. Would that be the way to, well, Terry, you were there for that one. So if you say they're funded differently, so it's not as severe a hit for some of the smaller towns. But there was 2 towns that have been a part of this for 25 years that say, right out, we're better off taking our lumps, securing it under the county, and moving forward with this. Some of the other towns said nothing, and some of the local communities basically said, don't have a problem with what you're doing, but it needs to be, the funding needs to be something different than the formula you're using now because it's too much of an increase for us to absorb.
Just so you know, whether it's this issue or another issue, until I'm not comfortable until I've listened to the Board of Selectmen for all 5 towns, then I can start.
I'm just here with your question to get an answer from you because I've already answered it from me. That's all.
Madam Chair, I'm concerned about setting up more advisory boards or some government group. We are the policy-making body for the county constituents, and I would be nervous to relinquish that authority that is given to us by the charter to serve the taxpayers to some other governmental body, because I can almost guarantee it will wind up being binding. I don't think it's responsible for us to do that. But I would not be surprised if we have a bunch of information submitted to us next week that's, or a week from now, or 2, that will make this seem like such a great idea. But I don't think we should be doing this. I think it will be irresponsible to go forward. We are humbly the taxpayers' voice, and we should keep serving them in that capacity. Thank you.
So would you like me to go back to them and say you need more clarity over what they're actually trying to accomplish, or would you just like me to go back to them and say, I don't think the county commissioners are interested in having a state and whatever governments to oversee dispatch, I guess.
Mr. Michael.
I'd suggest going back and saying we're not particularly interested, but we'd be happy to have more information.
I really don't have any more information. I hope you appreciate when I got the call, and I think when I, and my response was, I'll bring it to the county commissioners, that's all I'm doing.
I guess they could define between governance and advisory, because if you're saying Cumberland County has an advisory, yet they use the word governance. I think
It's
communication of both are what we're doing compared to what they think asking for. I'm wondering if we're just not communicating well.
Well, I'm wondering if the person that called me with the question was kind of unsure as well. But I'll call him back tomorrow and say, they're not particularly interested in Board of Governance unless you can clarify what you're trying to accomplish. The only clarifying question I did ask is, I said, well, under that model, there'd be no need for the sheriff to be involved, because you need to cut out some pieces here. And it was kind of, yeah, I guess so. And so I'm just doing what I said I do all along. Decisions like that, I'd rather have you guys be part of this.
Commissioner Ames.
I'm not interested in another board.
I think I get a feel. Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay,
Sheriff.
the next item, I will turn the gavel over to the vice chair.
Okay, under new business, section D, removal of chair. I would call your attention before we begin to section 9 of our bylaws. Order and resolve. Every order and resolve shall be read by title only unless the board votes to have it read in full. So, shall be read by title only.
Is this the motion that and supporting documentation that I submitted to the commission on July 11th, or August 11th? Thank you. I make a motion for removal of Chairwoman Sally Christner as chair of the Anscombe County Commission for violating the Constitution, state law, state charter, and the bylaws pursuant to bylaws section 15. Chair to be presiding officer. The chair serves at the pleasure of the board. The chair may be removed or replaced at any time by a vote of 4 members.
The motion has been made. Do we have a second? Hearing no second.
Madam Chair, point of order.
Yes, Commissioner?
The decision by most of the commission is likely hinged on legal counsel, which I will not discuss, but that was received the previous meetings. But I would ask the commission to reconsider that due to our policy, which states, once informed of legal counsel being sought or commenced, a majority of the elected board of commissioners shall have jurisdiction regarding decisions to continue or discontinue the pursuit of, reception of, or implementation of that legal advice or action. We did not hold a vote to accept or reject that legal advice. Therefore, that legal advice was invalid for preventing my motion and supporting documentation from being given to the commission. That was wrong. It was using legal funds to try to cover somebody's political highs. That was wrong. And I would urge the commissioner to reconsider this vote. If the chair has nothing to hide, this motion and its supporting documentation should be reconsidered. Thank you.
I hand the gavel back to you.
Okay, item 11, discussion items. Commissioners only, discussion items.
Madam Chair?
Based on Mr. Allen's comments earlier, I attend all the budget committee meetings, hoping the board would be in favor of me at one of those meetings, opening out for suggestions from the budget committee. Put some weight to his concerns and opening up for the budget committee to make some recommendations that I could bring back to the meetings. I attend them all anyways, I'd be happy to do that. And,
No objection here.
Nope.
Madam Chair? I have raised multiple concerns about the use of that executive section. It did not even list any of the clauses of section 456. It did not even list subsection C. We went into executive section after a long and arduous fight to just allow Mr. Poirier and myself to enter that executive session, which was inappropriate and wrong. And when I wondered aloud or raised concerns potentially that was not covered under executive section 456 subsection C, and furthermore, looking it wasn't covered under anything, you threatened me somewhere between a felony or misdemeanor, if that information was disclosed, that is not appropriate, that brings concerns of whistleblower protection. If someone cannot raise a concern in executive session without being threatened, and you didn't even provide the legal information justifying that statement. In fact, I believe former commissioner even stated that it was a civil penalty, not a criminal penalty. I request that information. You also said that we could have the lawyer answer any legal questions as promised in your email that purports to explain or summarize your discussion with Administrator Post, Sheriff Eric Sanderson, and yourself. And somehow that recommendation only never included the Commissioner Larry who raised that concern, yet somehow the recommendation that your summary states is that the complainant should be retrained or be offered further training. There's others that need retraining on FOA laws. If you didn't enter it and it didn't meet the criteria, that was not a legal executive session. And raising concerns and being threatened is very concerning. How am I able to represent my people and my constituents when I'm threatened? That was wrong. I respectfully demand an apology and an answer for why this was done. You should have never threatened me.
Okay, any other discussion items?
Nope.
Future agenda items? Commissioner Poirier, I believe you have something you want to address here?
I believe it was one of the last, exactly which means but the MCCA has a remote meeting sample policy that they are willing to provide to council.
Yes, and I've been working on that to modify it for us, a couple of changes, and hopefully you'll have that in business with budgets, and hopefully you'll have that next week.
Okay. What I was asking for tonight was that you would bring in the remote policy, and give us the pros and cons based on your objective analysis, and that you have it for our October 16th. That's what I wanted to give you.
October 6th.
Okay. I was giving you more time, but if you want to bring it sooner, that's okay. But I just want to make sure.
Yes.
Legislature passed this rule, and I make sure we do our part.
Yes, that's been on the agenda.
Thank you.
Okay, other future agenda items?
Madam Chair, I'd like to request that we, as a commission, for the agenda, vote to open up that entire executive session discussion and the legal counsels that were given for public discussion, even though frankly it's not even necessary. Thank you.
And that would be for
The April 21st meeting and the summary that you sent to the commission of the purported summary of the discussion with the lawyer and Administrator Post and Sheriff Sampson, and also the document, the one-page document that we received from legal counsel that was given to us, I believe, at the previous meeting. Thank you.
I don't know how the rest of the board feels about that. I think we have to take that under advisement from
From the Chair,
we'll put it on the agenda.
the policy allows us to decide whether to accept or reject legal counsel, and I was attempted to be removed from the union negotiation team against legal counsel once that someone is quite well aware of, so, and the records are on video. So I would just say that we don't need to let ourselves know that legal counsel if we will ignore it.
It's on the agenda.
On the agenda.
Thank you.
Okay. If there is nothing else, our next commissioners meeting will be September 15th. And the budget committee, first meeting of the budget committee is September 8th at 6 o'clock in courtroom 2. Motion to adjourn.
Second.